I want to begin by, welcoming all of you. This is our first session at Mycelium. We're calling it Mycelium Dialogues because we believe that there is this unique intersection of nature, sustainability, and innovative investments. And I want to be curious to sit down with some of the most insightful minds this industry could offer and talk to them about it. So when we designed this platform to deep dive into these conversations, our only goal was, could we create this platform which talks about sustainable future for our next generation or our children. Our goal is to inspire, learn, and perhaps even ignite actions that contribute to what we believe is harmoniously coexisting with nature. And the team at Mycelium Ecology is extremely passionate about it. I'm one of the co-founders at Mycelium. We have a bunch of more team members here. And our mission is to conserve pristine natural habitats within Western Ghats by fostering a community that values and nurtures these ecosystems. Our first project within this mission is what we call Dancing Frog Habitat. It's a unique 70-acre conservation sanctuary deep within what I believe is the most beautiful part of Western Ghats, Coorg, Karnataka. Within this beautiful landscape, we are actually developing the Dancing Frog Collective, which brings in a group of mindful individuals who can become the custodian of the land they conserve. So our collective members don't just invest into the property, but actually are taking part in conservation and, in fact, the flourishing of an ancient forest teeming with biodiversity. So to be part of this collective is an exclusive opportunity to be part of a community, I think, that cherishes and maybe even protects nature and gets an enriching lifestyle out of it. So if you'd like to be part of the collective, watch out for an email post this session, and our team will get in touch with you with the coordinates. I'm actually super excited to host this first session because of our guest of honor today. And he is someone who I recently, admired. So I'm actually genuinely thrilled, like I said. He's someone I began admiring only recently, but his impact on the way I think about mycelium ecology has been profound, to say the least. While some may introduce him as an entrepreneur, and others may highlight his role as a researcher, I think to me he represents a seamless blend of these roles and many more as a well-rounded human being. Harpreet, fondly known as the curious parent on his digital world, and also Happy Singh. I think both of those names are synonymous to Harpreet. His journey has been inspiring as well as instructive for a lot of us. I'm going to spend a bit talking about his journey. I think when you think about somebody peaking after successfully exiting a startup, I think Harpreet began his journey after successfully exiting, and he hasn't stopped peaking since. He's written a book. In his book, Let's Build a Company, which is packed with real, no-nonsense stories of what founders go through and the genuine setbacks they have. To me, felt like a heartfelt narrative about adaptability, about learning from all of these setbacks. And I thoroughly enjoyed reading it. But beyond CoCubes, Harpreet actually has a jealous-worthy list of portfolios as an investor, including Ola, Chayo's, Bombay Shaving Company, to name some of the few. But the jealous worthiness is improved by the fact that he's also an early investor at Mycelium Ecology. And that to me shows his, I think, dedication towards impactful venture. But what's unique and perhaps the highlight of today's discussion is his passionate approach towards parenting. As the curious parent, Harpreet has dedicated himself to go down a research-heavy path on early child development. I think constantly exploring new ways to foster meaningful conversation between parents and children. And as a father of four, his Instagram page is a true playbook for me. But what I find it is I find it very comforting that my parental struggles aren't unique to me. I think that has been the biggest realization even after having four kids. So before we dive into this discussion, I want to really get into your thoughts directly, Harpreet. I thought I will start with a rapid fire round just to get to know you better. So the rules of the
Let's do that.
rules of the rapid fire round remains the same. You got 5 seconds to think about this, whatever comes your mind. Yeah, let's go for
Okay.
it. All right, sunrise or sunset?
Sunset.
Okay. Holiday by the
The
beach,
more redder, just in case we were wondering.
the more redder.
Yeah.
Okay, lovely.
Is redder a word?
I think it's pinkish hue, but we'll
It's
go.
it's not. It's now. Redder is now a word.
There you go. Okay. Holiday by the beach or trek up a mountain?
Trek up a mountain any day.
Yeah, we have a 2-minute video of you trekking up that mountain, so we'd like to play someday that. All right, the third question. If you were a tree, what kind would you be?
A banyan tree.
A banyan tree. Any reason why?
Big, long living, branches hanging down. Winds flutter. A lot of leaves falling. Like it just represents a nice image to me. You can climb it. Yeah.
Lovely, lovely. I think it's also a keystone species, so it sort of enables, very apt to who you are. So it's okay. What is a hobby you recently picked up?
Oh, nothing actually. That reminds me, maybe I should pick up a new hobby.
All right.
I
Great.
went back to cricket. After 24 years of denouncing cricket, I've started. My daughter's school has a cricket team now, and father's cricket team. So I joined that. After 24 years of shaming people who watch cricket.
Wow. Are you a batsman, bowler? What are you?
In India, everybody's an all-rounder. What are you talking about?
I love it. I love it. All right. Final question. What is your favorite book of all time?
Favorite book of all time. I think a book called Summerhill. That is what comes to my mind. It's a book about free school in UK. It's written by the founder A.S. Neil, and he talks about his journey of building this free school from scratch up, and the kind of students who came there and what happened. I remember a incident where there's a child who comes to the school, and the school actually is a big house, and there are windows in the house, and this child has come when he's 8-10 years of age. So he comes and doesn't want to go to school. He has been thrown out of so many schools. So he comes and he picks up a stone and starts breaking the windows. Okay, so he starts breaking the windows, and he breaks one window, the second window, the third window. And the founder says, I know he's trying to get to me. He's trying to get me to throw him out of the school. So the boy keeps breaking windows. And when the last window is left, the founder goes out, picks a stone and breaks the last window himself. And he says, after that day, the child is no trouble.
Yeah. Wow.
And I think that was beautiful.
Wow. Okay. All right. We need to add it to our Mycelium's book list. We have one, and we'll add it and we'll talk about it. I think it's also a great segue to get started. You brought up a great topic, obviously personal to you. But in the process of preparing for this discussion, I chanced upon your interview with Jinan KB. It was an eye-opening interview, and we're going to add a link to it as part of the email we send out. And I think everybody should sort of go through that 1.5 hours of eccentric conversation. I thought at the beginning, but turned out to be absolutely a blast. I loved it. But one particular striking point that I figured intrigued me was Jinan sharing the story of this bunch of children playing, I think, in a farm setting. And they imagine a tree to be a boat, and then or a ship, I think, and then the pond to be the sea. And I see my little one always being curious. And Jinan calls this the collective intelligence of a children. And without any authoritative leadership, they are able to actually be so intuitive. I want to begin by asking why and how are children so naturally intuitive? Is it natural? Is it a fair thing to say that they are naturally intuitive, or do they sort of gain that over the course of the experiences they get?
I think, look, first, do I know for sure? I don't know, obviously. Yeah. But I'm saying when we try to trap things into words, I think it gets confusing. When we say, are children intuitive or not? Then we all have to come to agreement on what does the word intuitive mean. Yeah. And not in definition, but what our understanding of intuitive is. So I leave that aside for now. But I'm saying I know the sense with which you are asking the question. I think children are born with couple of fears, fear of falling and I think fear of loud noises. Apart from that, so these are the two in my head, these intuitive things that kids have, which genes have given them. But apart from that, every child who's born, the child is looking to survive. That is what the child is looking to do. Like any other form on earth, a child wants to survive. That is what it is, right? And how do we survive? I'm saying think of ourselves in a new place. And when we are in a new place, we feel, or let's say we have to speak in front of the stage, we come to a new forest, then, we can get a little overwhelmed. We don't know what to do. We are meeting new people. But as we spend more time, we get more attuned. Similarly, children, when they are born, as they get to understand the world, they get more attuned and they want to understand the world. That is their curiosity. That is their intuitiveness in some way, that I have to understand my surrounding because I have to survive. And they do it, using their senses. And this idea of, for example, even the Jinan example, this idea of this is mine or this is yours, is, I believe, fed from people, from the adults who have this concept of mine. Like, don't touch my phone, don't touch my laptop, all of this is my chair, this is their house, this is my house. I remember we just bought some land near Bombay, on a lake in Mulchi. And I remember going there and my daughter she's 8 and she was saying, so because you buy land in a village setting, you have to fence it. Okay. So we were seeing that and my daughter said, hamara kaun sa land hai, ye fence wala hai kya? And it is on the lake, and beyond that is just a jungle and then the lake. And then I realized, what have we done? And I was trying to tell her, whenever you come here, please don't feel this is our land. Till your eyes go, feel that is your land. This lake, this jungle, everything belongs to all of us.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
fence in between.
Yeah. So the fence brought up by us changes this intuitiveness of the child. Yeah. But otherwise, children are, as Jinan would say, born in truth.
I think if one were to follow you either on Instagram or LinkedIn, they would notice a pattern of you taking time off from social media. And I know that you consciously also make an effort to be off screen. Recently, you spent 3 weeks at Magnolia Mist with your daughter. Why is this important to you, taking this time off? And if I may add, why is integrating this unstructured learning in nature of sorts, like an opportunity like this, why is it good for children?
Look, I'm saying definitely good for me, and I'm assuming it is good for children. In my head, how do I put it? I think there are 3 major changes that have happened in the last maybe 200 years. 250 years ago, there was the Industrial Revolution. So actually, let me take another step back. Parenting has been going on for a while, obviously, since the time man, woman, Adam, Eve. But in the last 250 years, a few changes have happened which has made parenting difficult. Okay. The first change that has happened which was the Industrial Revolution, which is the first time a parent now was physically away from the child for a long time. That is what happened. Because now the parent wasn't doing agriculture and the child just couldn't learn from the parent being physically around. But the parent had to drop the child somewhere and just vanish. okay, behind closed doors, because kids were not allowed inside the factories. Okay, that is one change that has happened. It actually is continuing today, because now we have nuclear families living in Bangalore, Bombay, everywhere. Both parents want to work and parents vanish, right? So a child, who is the child supposed to learn from? The second big thing that has happened is that even though when we are present, we are mentally absent because of technology. Like even for this call, I have to tell my daughter, please don't come. I will be in this call. This. I went yesterday to a restaurant. We were eating food. On my table next to me, there was a husband, wife, and a 10, 12-year-old kid sitting. Okay. They ordered, and then for the next 15 minutes, all three of them were on the phone. Okay. Now, this is not a judgment of the family. I'm saying this is the nature of the phone. It will pull you. Okay. So we have become physically absent, and then we can become mentally absent, right? And the third thing that has happened. So this is that agent, because of technology, agenda of the world has become pervasive.
Very true.
Okay. It is very easy for junk food to be available all across, all around us. It is very easy for the entire, when we give our child a phone, we don't give access to the world to our child. We give world access to our child in some ways, right? And it's not only phone; it's everywhere. We want to step out. There's a shop. The child wants to buy something. They our home is healthy. They go to a friend's place. There is junk food available there. There are cars that people want to buy. Conversation in the city around buying a new flat, buying a new sofa, going on a vacation, going for a car. This agenda of the world is pervasive. Okay. And this is not only mobile, there is this constant attention. And we were talking about how children learn to survive. They learn to survive using their senses. And the constant hounding of our senses, uh, of our ears, eyes, everything which is there, sound, to get to sleep, you have to put curtains which absolutely make the room dark. Otherwise, there is just so much light coming into the room even at 11 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
So the idea, and coming to the question you asked, the idea of spending time in nature is to get away from all this, get away from our senses being hounded, get away from agenda of the world. That is core to me. And you and me, and I think other middle-aged people who have joined this call, we have lived in such an environment. We have lived in an environment where the agenda of the world wasn't pervasive, but now it is. We haven't gone through this much. I remember I used to eat cake on my birthday and maybe one more friend's birthday, two more friends' birthday. Now every week there's a birthday party my child has to go to, not happening in the house, happening in a time zone, happening in a fun park where the only meal on offer is pizza and pasta and cake. Okay.
Yeah.
This is the agenda of the world.
Agreed.
Does one birthday matter? No. But I'm saying when 50 birthdays happen every week, they start to matter. When our child is growing up with all this coming in, this actually has led to so much research now. There's a beautiful book called The Anxious Generation by Jonathan Haidt. I have it on my desk. This is the book which talks about it. How depression, how loneliness, even though we are more connected, our children will feel more lonely. This is because the constant hounding of senses. So going to the jungle actually might seem like a lonely exercise, but in a sense, it will help us connect to life. So helping connect to life without an agenda is, at least in my head, the core of spending time outside the city.
Lovely. Lovely. I can't agree with you more. I have two dogs who are for 4 kids. So
Hmm.
that makes two more extra birthdays. And we
Hmm.
have to buy pizza and pasta for the dogs'
Hmm.
birthdays as well. So
Yeah,
it's a
look at that.
celebration for them. So
Even the dogs aren't spared from
so
agenda of the world, man. Dogs
exactly.
can't be
Well,
dogs
have you
anymore.
been to a head center? Yeah, the amount of food they get is the world is faster catching to them. I love it, and but I completely resonate with you, and I think after joining Mycelium, I've realized how much of the world have I gotten in on my mobile? And sometimes it's very scary. I try to consciously walk away, but it's also difficult, like you said, right? Like go to sleep, then there are these apps where you can listen to white noise, which is still technology. Apparently, that's the only way to go to sleep, which is a mobile phone with a white noise around. But I want to. You assume that okay, this is happening at home at a personal capacity, and you move to education, and you say at schools there are avenues like sports days and all of it where you're sort of put out there. 8 hours of school, you're in the classroom, you're perfectly okay. But a worrying trend revealed that actually children spend less time outdoors than some of prison inmates across the world. And 2019, a report presented that Indian schools, more than 50% of Indian schools don't have playground. Um, and I think, to me, I would assume that a responsibility, if we don't solve for it, often falls under the schools. What, from your anecdotes and conversations you've had, how do schools look at outdoor activities, especially in a place like India? Are there enough? Do schools do enough for it? Are children getting enough programs out of it?
No, I think we have to first take a step back and understand that schools are a reflection of who we are. Schools haven't evolved themselves. They haven't set the rules. They haven't said, we will do this, you pay us fees. They are able to do what they're able to do because as parents, this is what we want subconsciously for our child, right? The reason schools don't have playgrounds is because we don't want them. The reason our societies have more parkings than parks is also the same reason, right? Because we want more cars and then there needs to be parking space. And actually, if you take a step back, I did a big podcast on this as well, but roads earlier were for kids to play. Roads are for pedestrians, but roads have just been claimed by fast moving vehicles. And the statistics, and this is how the road safety department talks about them. The statistics will say, oh, over the last 20 years, roads have become safer for children, number of accidents have reduced. That is not what has happened. What has happened is children have stopped going to roads. That is what has happened. All the stats from 1990 to 2000 said 90% of children used to walk to schools. This is UK and Europe. Okay. Now, even in UK, I think it has reduced to 35%. In India, walking to school, I think now is unheard of. My wife used to walk to her school. I used to cycle to my school from the age of 10 onward. My school was 4 kilometers away. I'll be surprised if any of our children walk to school, if any of our children are cycling to school. Yeah. So we have taken spaces away consciously from children because of the life choices that we are making, obviously. And schools are just a reflection of this choice. My daughter goes to a school but doesn't have a playground. Why am I okay with it? Because she goes for 5 hours and in my head, okay, rest of the time she can be outdoors. Maybe this 5 hours is okay indoors. Even in schools which have a playground. And this, by the way, is another thing that I talk about, which is that schools are not hotels. Don't get taken in by the infrastructure. Just because a school has a playground doesn't mean your child will get to go in it. I remember having a 20 or a 40-minute lunch break. I don't think kids get it anymore. In international schools, when a child gets a lunch break, they have to sit at that table,
Yeah.
and eat their lunch. Like they can't bloody rearrange their tables and sit as a community meal. Even they can't do. They have to open their tiffin in their class, sit on their desk and eat their meal. And this is when across the world, all research has proven that allowing movement for the child improves learning and everything. We shouldn't need research for this actually. We shouldn't need research for this. Okay. Movement is how our brain forms. Movement is how we learn when we use our hand, when there are senses. I get some of my best thoughts when I'm running. They don't come sitting here on the desk, with a notebook trying to write notes. They don't come like that. The best thoughts come when I'm moving. That is at least my personal experience.
Yeah.
So, yes, they are reducing, but I'm saying they're reducing because of the choices we are making as humans.
Let's assume that they are spending the time out there. What happens? Is there something which happens chemically, biologically for children? Why is it important? You said that you don't need to, research shouldn't tell you what it is. But let's assume that, has there been any research done? Can you talk about what happens for a child when they are outside? Why do they get more creative cognitively?
I'm saying, yeah, I'm again going to go back and say I don't want to be trapped in words, right? Because what is creativity, right? I'm saying creativity for a lot of people, for example, can be used as, I don't know. I'm saying in my head, it's the ability to solve a problem is creativity. Okay, the ability to use the tools at your disposal to solve any problem you want to is creativity, right? And if you actually see, and I'm going to step away from the question, but see, Lego earlier used to come in free blocks. Okay,
Mm,
you got Lego and you made whatever you wanted to make out of them. How
mm,
did Lego increase their revenue from that X to 10X? They were able to do that because they started making Legos which resulted in exact a product. So I want a playground Lego. I want a friends Lego. I want a car Lego. I want a spaceship Lego.
yeah.
Even playing with plastic, has become less creative because the
Mm,
outcomes are fixed. And when we let children out in nature, there are no such rules. There are no such boundaries. A leaf can become anything. A tree can become anything. A diving became can become a launching pad. Whatever it might be, anything can become anything. And there are lesser rules. You
got
know,
it. Got
and
it.
and I wish that children could go out and be out of eyes of the parent. None of us want to be controlled. If I told you, all your movements will be watched, there is no way that you can like it. The fundamental thing is children want to feel in control of their lives. Now, my daughter has a friend in the building, and we also live in the city, right? And how many of us actually will allow our child to go out of our building alone? How afraid does that make us to let our child go out alone? Now, I'll tell you what happened a few days ago, and I live in Hiranandani in Powai, and the cluster of buildings, at least wider pavement, okay, the pavements to walk. Um, my daughter and her friend, and there's a garden in between and stuff. They said they just came back one day at 7 o'clock, which is when they come home, and they said today we went to uh, Tivoli or some building, and that building is about 300 meters away from where we live.
Got it.
Okay, they walked through all the stray dogs, all the thousands of people who could have kidnapped them, whatever, whatever, whatever. Yeah, and came back safe. And the line they said to me was, you know, there was no adult with us. And the pride and the happiness that they had is the confidence that I believe every child should have. Is there risk? Maybe there is 0.1% risk, but that was always present. I don't think that risk has increased in the last 20, 30 years. I think that with the population density in cities, that risk has decreased if it has. Right? But this is the confidence that can happen when we let children out of our sight, when we let children to nature, when we let children be. And being in nature, I think, helps us do that.
Yeah, I think nature is a lot more safer than cities for children. But yeah, I love what you said about leaving them out of our sight, and I'm guilty of sometimes worrying about the outside world. The outside world, but I also think that it's what you hear versus how much you also trust, right? So you only read bad things. You're only
No,
going to
absolutely.
believe.
I'm with you. And I'm saying this is agenda of the world. We see a reel about our watermelons being poisoned with red dye. That our watermelons are red and we buy watermelons carefully. It is simply not true. It is simply somebody trying to earn money by scaring us. You know, the amount of misinformation out there is absolutely crazy. And this is the agenda of the world that I was talking about. That this agenda has pervaded us, given us a sense of fear, where our children are afraid of ants and spiders. They're afraid of living things,
Very true. Yeah, yeah,
and I believe a lot of our kids are becoming lobby kids
yeah.
who have always just played in the lobby. And that too not alone, under the eyesight of a didi or a nanny who's supposed to carry a bottle for the child, who's supposed to carry a tiffin for the child, who's supposed to ask the child after every 5 minutes, are you hungry? Do you want to drink water? Like it is just crazy. We are animals. We
Yeah.
are animals. If you're hungry, we'll eat. If we are, if we are thirsty, we'll drink water. But we are actually, by letting the child be in the urban setting,
Yeah.
taking away this feeling of control, that I am in control of my life, away from our children. And that feeling, I believe, we can get in the city back if we take a step back. But in a place of nature where agenda of the world is missing, our own minds become silent and we become attuned to each other, and our children can take more risks.
I can't agree with you more. As we speak, there are three kids playing on the virtual reality set in my home, and they are in a forest. And they're perfectly okay in being in the VR world in a forest, but not in the real life. So I can't agree with you more. I think we'll move to the second part of the session. And I want to use that word, the agenda of the world. And and investment in nature, and what is this agenda, who's driving behind this, right? So in the world of investment, Harpreet, there is often this underlying tussle between, as an investor yourself, backing high tech, maybe in today's context, AI driven startups, which is driving technological progression, perceived innovation to a certain extent. And then there are the others who are doing on the impact side, including mycelium ecology, right? Supporting impactful ventures. So as an investor, how do you balance the excitement of potential cutting edge technology which could advance the human race versus saving the bare necessities, saving our own backyard or managing our own waste and startups like this? As an investor, how does one balance between these two?
So look, in my head, so I've been an angel investor for the last 7, 8 years, and in my head, if anybody is there listening, I think angel investing is an expensive hobby. Yeah. So we can have interest in
You didn't
advancing.
pick up a new hobby after a long time. It's
Sorry.
probably because no wonder you didn't pick up a new hobby after a long time. I'm
But
saying
it's
it.
expensive hobby because you put money somewhere and you have no idea whether it's going to come back or not, right? And like I met an investor, and the investor said to me, and he was a famous investor who has made a lot of money. And he said, every morning I wake up and I tell myself, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know. Because he said the startups I think will make money die down, and the startups I think will die down make me all the money that I have. Yeah. So we don't know. Yeah. Uh, but in my head, I invest where my heart is. I don't invest because I think this is going to be popular. This is also learned. This was not my fund of investment in the first few years. But I've learned that, like, I want to put my money where my mouth is. I want to put money where I enjoy seeing the journey and I can be maybe a little bit involved. And I'm interested in knowing what is happening. Yeah, because all of us have very limited time on this earth. You and me are probably already midway or maybe a little bit more. So we have very little time, and at least I have stopped seeing investments only as investments. They now take a little bit more of me. Uh, at the same time, I am a big believer in ensuring that you don't lose your money. Right? So you can't go all heart and put your money somewhere where because like you don't have to be an emotional fool. Yeah. That is how I think about it. So there has to be downside protection, and upside we'll see what happens because we really don't know. Yeah. Now, when it came to forest, it came to nature, it came to all of this. I have, Bhakti and I, my wife, and I have bought land in a few places. We have some land in Palampur, which is Himachal, a land we really fell in love with, a place we really fell in love with. And then we have some near Bombay on a lake. One thing that when I am buying land now, and I haven't bought an apartment so far. My wife and I haven't bought an apartment so far. Okay. One of the criteria we have is there a water source? Because I genuinely think with the heat reaching where it is reaching and with the amount of contamination our water is getting, I think being next to water is essential. Okay, that is something that's very important for me. I remember I visited to Dancing Frog and that perennial stream flowing through Dancing Frog, right? And the children playing in it. And the fact that that bloody crystal clear water stream flows throughout the year. And it doesn't come from where other people have put chemicals in something inside it. It comes from the forest.
Yeah.
So you're
Yeah.
sure that the water is actually pure. And I
Yeah.
think that is like genuinely one of the fascinating things about dancing frog. But to come back to investment, for example, I think an acre of land in
Mm.
a still is less than 50 lakhs an acre
Mm.
outside of the city in those ranges.
Mm.
Yeah. Whereas a city apartment flat,
Mm.
3 BHK in a major city is now upward of 2 crores in most cases.
Mm.
So 2000 square feet, 1500 square feet is 2 crores, whereas 50,000 square feet is less than 50 lakhs. At the same time, I think buying land comes with its own set of challenges,
Yeah.
um, which is one thing that actually was very interesting to me about Mycelium and Dancing Frog, which is one reason I got very excited, which is that this is a win-win in that head, right? That there is this 70 acres of land that is actually fully sorted. You don't need to do any legal work to get signatures, to get people to come and sign. No department of construction will come and ask you or hound you. Nobody will come to take bribe from you. None of those hassles, but you can actually guarantee that you and your children will be surrounded by nature for life. Like 70
Correct.
acres of forest is available for you.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that is at least what personally excited me about this thing. Here is 70 acres of forest which will remain like a forest.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
people buy apartments for a sea view and there is another building on top of it.
Yeah.
I remember an investor, I think Rakesh Jhunjhunwala's wife or somebody else's wife, had to buy a building under redevelopment for 200 crores or 300 crores because they were redeveloping that housing society. And if it had happened, her view to the sea would have gotten disturbed.
Wow. Wow. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
and
Lake view, sea view. There are
yeah.
many. Yeah.
And by the way, this has been another interesting change, at least in my head. And I don't know how different people on the group feel about this. That when I was 20, I would maybe give anything for a sea view apartment.
Yeah.
Okay, boss, you have a sea view apartment, a balcony opening, you can see the sea. I don't bloody care. I don't want a sea view apartment. I don't want to see anymore. I want to do. We can't keep our children in a sea facing apartment on 24th floor for them to see nature. They
Yeah.
have to be on the ground, they have to be involved.
Yeah.
That is, what is truly is important to be involved, not to see.
Yeah, yeah. No, I completely agree. I did a house hunting in Chennai, and somebody showed me the broker was showing me the house, and he said you can see the view of the ocean from here, and it was from the bedroom, one window. You have to do it in an angle like this, then you'll be able to see the sea. I think to me. And the way he was selling it also was great. And perhaps double clicking on it. And you mentioned about having a space in the city versus having massive land. And I completely agree with the perennial stream at Dancing Frog, my favorite place. It wasn't just the children who jumped into it. I clearly remember you being the first one to jump into that stream when we went there. But I want to talk about valuation of this land. If you are an investor and if you are going back to your thought on safeguarding your base and at the same time at the top, investments in land is often perceived to be either for future for investments or for people like us, it's in the nature and we want to conserve it. But the true value for them is perceived at an urban setting, at an apartment level, or even like a farmhouse within that landscape with a massive lawn. Do you see the value being perceived wrong? Do you see more value when you say you want a water source? I saw you actually have putting more value on that rather than like a garden facing or a lawn facing. Why do you feel like there is value in going back to earth and picking just that land and investing in that or conserving it? Why not in a appreciable, tangible real estate level?
No, I don't think there is a comparison.
Okay,
Um, I think
fair.
this land which is outside the city will appreciate. I
Correct.
have no doubt in my head that this is going to appreciate. And I'm not talking about dancing frog. I'm talking of uh, I'm saying land is a finite source, finite
Yeah.
resource. Yeah, and hence over time land appreciates, and people who know what land to pick and what to do will always be able to get a return on their investments. There is no doubt about that. I personally believe that land outside the city with a water source have a lot of potential. Um, and I'm talking purely in monetary perspective. Okay. Return on investment perspective, that land with a water source versus land without a water source, I think are just two different categories in my head.
Okay.
Okay. And I wouldn't go and buy a land without a water source, because then you're reliant on tankers and God knows what to be able to just live there. Like we don't, because we open a tap and water comes, we don't understand, or we don't realize how important and how like how soon can water vanish. Yeah. Even the Palampur land that we have is on a glacial stream. So to me, water source is important, and I believe those lands will appreciate. More than that, value of what is the value of a forest? What is the true value of a forest? Is the true value of forest climate change? Is the true value of forest the millions of insects who live there? Is it a 300-year-old tree that is on the forest? Like what, which actually when cut will give you 5 lakh rupees. But is there any value to that tree which is 300 years old?
Yeah.
I don't think I can explain that to anybody over a call, because frankly, our kids and maybe even us as kids have read about forests in our notebooks. If you ask kids which are the rainforests in India or rainforests in the world, they will say Amazon. They will list down all the names of the forests in the world, which are a different kind of forest, tropical forest, rainforest. They will list down all the names of forests. But has a child visited a forest? Has a child stayed in a forest? Does a child understand how much biodiversity one tree supports? I think that is truly missing. And, because you mentioned Jinan in the morning, I love talking with Jinan because he takes an extreme point of view. And he would say all knowledge from books is false. Okay. Well, I might not agree with him in that manner, but this knowledge of forest can't be gained from books. Only names can be gained. There's a tropical forest, there's a rainforest, there is this forest, there is that forest. Birds and animals live in forest. We can read about this in a book, but we can only experience it when our children truly go to a forest. And I can bet, there are people on the call that how many of us have truly seen a million-year-old forest? We have been to jungles, we have been on this safari trail.
Yeah.
Okay. Hoping for a tiger to cross, which also encompasses only maybe 3% of the area of the forest where you're allowed to go, which has been spoiled because of all of us going. None of us maybe truly have actually been inside a forest, seen a tree which is moss laden, full of lichen, and see the amazing sound hear the amazing sound of forest. I think most of us haven't done that. And so what is the value of it? I don't know, Vinod. You tell me.
Yeah, no, I could tell you the value is starting at 79 lakhs and it could go, but that's coming from a dancing frog. And I think when I first met with you, and I remember distinctly pitching dancing frog habitat, and you kept asking me, so the whole 70 acres is ours? Is like, yes, the whole 70 acres is ours, right? So I think the value is the fact that we often, at least in my head, that true sense of until what the eye sees is all yours without the worry of fencing, has been one tremendous eye opener for me. Is the fact that we don't appreciate. We think that our world is big enough at a 2,000, 3,000 square feet, and then you go out to a 70 acres, and then you realize how big Western Ghats is. Then you realize how big Earth is. And I think that lesson I learned by being in a forest solves for that value. I call it the value return of investment for the soul. But I also agree. I think that there is that monetary benefit as well. But I'd been curious about this because every time we meet with a collective member, they talk about the value in monetary and also in the time scale. They say that I'd like the land, even if I invest, to get appreciated in the next 5 years. What I hear is I'd like development and destruction to come my way for the land to appreciate. Do you see us looking at time scales wrong? Should in certain investments be multi-generational so it becomes powerful as a snowball effect?
No, I think everybody has a different journey as a family, and they have a different value they put to money. You know, I have friends who believe if they have 5 lakhs in their account, they are the richest people in the world. And I have friends who, when they have 50 crores, still get up and go to office because they don't feel it is enough. Yeah. So I have known, and they are friends, they're good people, they're nice people, all of them.
Yeah.
So so I think every family has a different journey, and every family should take care to ensure that they feel protected and they feel that they have done enough for their child and for themselves. Um, I do feel that having having a place for our child which is in nature, where one can go away from the agenda of the world, is a valuable investment. That is how I feel about it.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I'm going to see if the audience members have any questions for us. You could either raise your hand and I'll unmute, or you could put it up on the chat here, and then we'll go. I have a couple of more questions, but I want to also be mindful of the time we have with Harpreet as well. Does anybody have any questions? Yes. Yeah. Manu, would you like to unmute? I'll see if I can unmute.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Manu. Please go ahead.
First of all, this is such an interesting conversation. Just to let you know, my background is about 20 years of media, but then for the last 5 years, I've been working with my father, who's an agriculture scientist. And we've been practicing sustainable farming. And what Harpreet said, first thing about water source, it's exactly what we look at actually when we're farming, the land prices also is all about the water. But what we are also starting to do is go ahead and dig and try to get, more water conserved and so on. But my question is very different. What you said, in terms of multi-pronged investment, an investment that is total, which is not just looking at one aspect, is always keeping the nature aspect on it. I mean, you look at any science fiction, you look at anything, forest and food go hand in hand. They cannot be ignored. One without the other is useless. I remember telling my dad, hydroponics karte hain, aeroponics karte hain, aap to sabse bade scientist ho. He said, no, you're losing this land. Learn open cultivation first. It is so important. So I want to know, what are the kind of avenues? Is this something that could seriously even happen, where people can look at a holistic cure kind of thing, where they say, aap apna ghar bhi banao, but alongside with that, we don't disturb nature, but we just merge into it.
Yeah. No, I can't agree with you more. And I think at Mycelium, we've been toying with this idea, and I'm going to be as cautious as Harpreet in saying that we believe and we think we can do it. And here is why I think we can, because there is this innate need for us to be able to, first, I think Harpreet began in saying it's me and us versus everybody else. And one of the first things we realized at Mycelium was there is nature and then there is humans. And we consider ourselves to be two different, and yet there is so much interdependency and interconnectedness between that never have I actually ever thought about, could it be all of us together? But when I go back and look at my childhood, nature was always around because of lack of development. So I think what we are trying to do at Mycelium is not just look at it as a tree hugging community which will go out and say we won't cut any trees and we're going to lock every forest out there and keep it and not let people in. But I think the key is could we balance by letting people in to experience nature in its true format and let them learn in their own perspective? So when I walked in and I saw dancing frog habitat for the first time, I realized that I actually, although I could be having a house here, we are building a house within this collective member and all of it. The fact that I'm eager to go out and explore just a bit outside, and I don't care if it's 1 acre, 5 acres, 7 acres, or 70 acres. I think the fact that I get to do that excites me more than going to a house there within that world, right? So I think my kids have started liking the idea of spending time there. A lot of the time we spend is exploring just these dark tropical forests. So it is
Yeah.
possible. We are trying to do it. We'd love to talk more about it, but only time will tell. I guess the more we
Yeah.
get people like
My,
you,
my, my real my real objective, sorry to interrupt you, Vinod, is that when
yeah,
investors like you are
yeah,
making such moves, which is so beautiful, can you make this a little bit of a viral infection so more investors like you go ahead and do this more and more? Because very soon we are not going to have much left, and then it's going
yeah.
to be looking to migrate to another planet, which is pretty stupid, when we have a whole infrastructure in here,
Yeah, yeah. We say that there is no planet B for a lot of us. There is only Plan B.
Yes,
So yeah,
yes,
absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, we'll send you more information. Conversations like these are our ways of also
fantastic.
reaching out. And there are
But
some questions coming. I'll try to answer them. But there is Ani Guj here raising hands, so I'm going to ask them to unmute. Uh, yeah, if you've got a question, feel free to ask us, Ani.
Yeah, I'm Anita. Uh, Thank you for conducting this session. Maybe I'm not an investor or someone, but this idea was very interesting to me, and maybe my question is very much ahead of what we are discussing. But out of curiosity, I'm asking this. The first question is, as you mentioned, that this is more of a collective, and the idea is not just, it is a holistic idea, investment, ecology, and balanced life. However, it might happen that as the time passes and in the rush or need to have the higher returns on the monetary side, it might happen that, right now, what sustainable construction and residence we are looking for, the idea might get impacted. So, uh, is there anything that has been thought that it will go along as it has been the idea of the collective? And there is one more question I have, but I'm not able to recall. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Harpreet, do you want to take that or I'll go with it?
No, absolutely. Please go ahead. I think she's misinterpreted what you were saying. For the dancing frog, obviously there is no notion of more development on the land.
Correct.
But you can answer
Yeah.
that more clearly.
Yeah, I think what we are trying to do is we are actually trying to create this narrative of coexisting with nature, where the development doesn't necessarily become human centric, but including ourselves into it rather than establishing humans into that landscape. And this risk of the ecosystem being developed, and you could very well say that my house is clean, but then if you live within a garbage dump yard, then at some point the stench is going to come to your house. So there are two risks we call. One is the ecosystem rapidly around us getting depleted. We're already seeing towers coming. We're already seeing pavements becoming roads and all of that. At some point we can't control it. But the 70 acres is precisely under a conservation collective because of what is within this 70 acres and how we want to almost create a refugium for the habitats within this, the mosses Harpreet was talking about, the dancing frog itself. So we call this a risk. We've added a community code where we are articulating what we do within this landscape. For example, 80% of this landscape is going to be kept untouched forever. And it's written within the collective agreement people who come into this collective agree to that when they join. And then there is the other aspect of the coexistence zone, as we call it, and where we are taking precautionary measures in bringing leading architects to not develop this. So, like for example, houses are built on stilts, there is no cutting, there is no drilling, things like that. But I think I want to go back to Harpreet's one of his investor friends' answer. I don't know. I think that's the answer, is we are doing all we can to be cautious, but we don't know many things, and both nature and the human and the economic development around it is teaching us and guiding us. But we've taken a lot of those measures. So, Anita, I'm happy to share whatever information for you, and feel free to poke holes and give us these questions. We need more eyes and ears. Then there is next question is Mangal Pandey. Please unmute yourself.
Hey, hi, Harpreet and Vinod. Thank you so
Hi.
much for this. I don't have any specific question, but I was just like to share some of my reflections, right? I think one
Please.
on just the child in the urban landscape and the way they are growing, right? And I think while there have been a lot of movements on nature-based education that have happened in the past, but somewhere I think this whole residential nature-based education and housing community living to be built on a concept that Dancing Frog is built on, and where you have open space because not it's beautiful, it's because it's a learning space. And I just picking on the thread, that such a beautiful thread, right? Where people in like Harpreet was saying that you have space created for parking lots, but you don't create space for parks. So in the same way, can communities start thinking about, we live together and we have forests or space where children can explore nature, not because it's in the corner or something, but because it's an investment for the children. So I think that was one thought that was running in my head. And then I think the second one is just around, I think like Harpreet said, a lot of people in my age group are just thinking about owning a house or building a house. And I think, I've constantly struggled to kind of articulate my thoughts on what I believe a house should be. And I think after hearing you and Harpreet, I think a lot of clarity in the way I want to express my thoughts on what a good house, I mean, what community do I want to live with, or what's the role of nature in a place where I live in. So thank you for this. Yeah.
Mangal, I want to just add there. I remember this beautiful line from a book where this guy goes to Adivasi, and he says to the Adivasi, "Are, is this the house you live in? Small house, so dingy. Is this the house you live in?" And the Adivasi looks at the house and he says, "This." He said, "No, no, no. This is only my sleeping place. This forest you see is my house." Yeah. So
Yeah.
Yeah. So beautifully put. Yeah. And I'm just linking it back to this whole my place, your place, right? The example that you gave of your daughter. And I think these are such powerful messages to be given out. And I think, once we start seeing, perceiving as a space where you live in, not exactly the space that you own, I think that's where this whole community, forest, open spaces will be revived in. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I love it. And somebody was asking me the other day, how can you buy forest from the government and make it into a house? I said, government doesn't define forest, and forest is not defined by government. Where there is teeming biodiversity and yet private hand is still considered a forest I think Harpreet said you don't want to latch on to a word. I think the forest needs a definition because there is so much biodiversity within our own backyard. We sometimes forget and we don't pause and look at it, and it doesn't have to be in a dense forest with tigers. It could be a park where you just observe and learn a lot of these in itself. And I think that's my final question, Harpreet, as we try to answer more, is I want to be considering everything we've discussed. The idea of unstructured learning, the idea of the world speaking a different language today than what it was before, balancing investments. What can an urban dweller do to get these experiences without the excuse of there's no space for me to go, there's no time for? Are there any routines they could include? You've seen which can have an impact in their well-being by just simply being out there? Any words of wisdom?
No, no words of wisdom. I'm saying it depends on how much. I think let me correlate to this another question that parents ask, which is,
Sure.
um, like I give my child the phone, but if I was not to give my child phone, can you tell me what else can I do with my child? You know,
Yeah.
so, and the answer to that parent is that once we understand how detrimental is the use of screen by a child over long term, once a parent truly understands this, you will find all the answers. You will not have to look online to see what do I do with my child, how can I keep my child busy. You will find answers. But for that, we have to realize that a mobile screen takes a child away from life. That realization is important. Similarly, once we are clear that we are living in a world where the agenda of the world is pervasive and our child senses are overwhelmed and always absorbing information, we will find our ways to take our child out. Whether it is for a walk in the evening in the garden next to our house, whether it is weekend trips, which is to a farmhouse or someplace where we are not looking for, do you have archery, do you have horse riding, what other activities do you have? We are okay just to be out, or whether it is longer nature time spent, right? Like I have started doing at least with our family over 2 to 3 weeks, so that you can actually forget the city for a while. But I'm saying for any of this to happen, a parent has to first need to have this realization that this agenda of the world is overwhelming our child. And in the long run, this is not good for my family. Once this happens, everything else will fall into place.
Well said. Well said. And it is, yeah, it is scary when a parent realizes it, because at that point they are panicking for all that they have done. And I had a realization, but it's also difficult to implement it, especially when two parents are always working. But I guess finding the right balance is what matters. But Harpreet, thank you for sharing your invaluable insights. The key takeaway, at least the word I'm going to both fear and probably double click on, is this agenda of the world, and I'm going to see what we could do with it. I think your perspectives on integrating nature with education, the unique value of investment you were talking about, especially water source, and the idea of less parking and more park, all of these have given me a lot to think. And I'm really grateful for you accepting my invite within 15 minutes, saying yes, and sort of pushing me and saying, okay, let's get on with it. Let's give them something. I think thank you for your time. Thank you for your wisdom. And for our audience, those who are listening to us now versus those who are probably listening to the recording later, this is just the beginning. We've got an exciting lineup of talks within, or rather dialogues in the Mycelium Dialogues series that you don't want to miss. So stay tuned on our social media to get the dates. And if you're interested in joining the collective, Arjun's been sending his contact details. We'll reach out to you via email as well. Thank you all for joining this Friday evening. Harpreet, again, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Vinod.
We look forward seeing you in one of our events. Until next time, take care and stay curious.
Hey, thank you, everybody. Good chatting. Take care. Have a good weekend.